Okay, so let's give all glory to God, the great communicator this morning. And how about if we talk about saying bye-bye to judgment? That'd be good?
Yes.
We all have it. It's inside of us as humans. God said when you judge your brother, you are judging yourself because we are all one. Judgment is an indictment. It comes from the ego. So as I talk about the judgment, we know that's a form of work from the ego as well. Judgment finds your brother guilty and therefore yourself, because the finger is always pointed at you. Every time we do this, it comes back. When you accuse a stranger, you are nonetheless pointing at yourself. And in truth, the attention is always on you. You press somebody down and you feel higher. You judge someone and you feel justified. It's important for you and your ego to be right and to be acknowledged as right. Of course, you tell yourself, no, I'm just seeking justice, when actually you're seeking vindication. When you let someone else be accused of his failings, you feel better inside. Someone had to pay, and you're grateful it isn't you. You're so grateful that you're too good to be on trial. Do you want your eyes to be accusing of others or loving of others? Oh, you might say, well, I'm actually loving when I'm accusing because I love righteousness more than the simple souls that are standing there before me. You love that you got caught, or that they got caught, and you haven't been found out yet. You haven't been found out yet of being a human being who in terms of this world is less than perfect. So let your heart throw no stones. Pick up a kindness instead. Throw out judgment to the winds. Judgment is no gift at all for either one of you or anybody. Of course, as humans, we have justified judgment in many ways. But do you know what it really is? It's a hobby. It's a pastime. So it's time to let go of comparisons that we do between each other, and you will love. You will love because you have left games of the mind behind. You will have left all the distractions from love behind. There are all these people in the world that you do not even know personally, but probably still have judgments. And you set your jaw about being right, and you join in the crowd that sends them, and you say, oh, they got their just desserts for what they did. No, beloveds, they did not get their just desserts, because their just desserts is love. And they didn't get the love, they got judgment instead. You sacrificed them to an altar that exonerates you. So I ask the question, what if you lived on a deserted island and you were the only one on it, and then all of a sudden this other person washed up on shore? Would you be happy? Of course, because another human being, what a gift you would feel to have somebody there. What a gift another one is, another human being in our life. How grateful you would be for that other human being to communicate and connect with. After a while, perhaps later, you might begin to see the person's faults. Perhaps you may overlook them because something else about that person interests you more than his faults. However, your need to judge, no matter how mistaken, came from a good intention in your heart. And I used to talk about this when I did workshops, because I watched people as they came in to sit down, and they'd look at certain people and go, I know their mind was probably going, no, I don't want to sit next to her or him, and they'd find a seat over here or whatever. And it's like we feel like we're separate from each other when we come into a place that's new, until they get to know each other, and then the walls kind of fall apart and we get a little bit more connected to each other. So this came from a good intention in your heart, because you wanted to do right and good, you wanted to serve, but the best you could do at the time was to call in judgment. So it came to your aid as a servant. Only then on, your servant started to rule the roost and take over, because judgment likes to take over and color all of your life. Judgment sorts right and left, and perhaps has grown up to call all the shots in your life. Judgment puts thoughts in your head and words in your mouth. Judgment sort of shakes you up the way you shake a little rug outside the window. Judgment takes you on a ride. It picks you up and it takes you where you really don't want to go. It's like a commando or a kidnapper who's avid to tell you all the time what it thinks about other people. It's not enough to push this arbitrator and judgment away, because he has a stronghold and he's not easy to push around. You need something else or someone else to come in and take judgment's place. So who is that? What is it that can come in and take over for judgment? Who can come in and have a more forgiving point of view? Who could help you get out of the bind that judgment has tied you in? What is the name that we give to what can get you out of judgment's trap? You know it's a trap, don't you, beloveds? A well-worn trap that judgment has you in because it doesn't want to let go of the reins. It's in control. Judgment has enjoyed its judge's seat too much to want to leave. He doesn't want to give up the gavel. Judgment bears resemblance to a crooked politician who's been found out but refuses to leave. Judgment refuses to concede his duplicity. He was only trying to do his job, justifying the decisions that are made. The thing is that then judgment's job becomes more important than your welfare and the welfare of others. So then I ask again, who has this power and the willingness to overthrow judgment? Who is it that can take judgment by its coattails and take it out of the way? Who has the muscle? Can you guess? Can you guess what would displace judgment? And you got to know that judgment's displacement doesn't look like anyone who muscles his way in. This energy doesn't flex its muscle. It's an entirely different breed. Of course, judgment's replacement is a form of love. I will call it compassion for one another. Call it understanding. Call it the ability to look at people and things in a different way. Instead of jumping into the middle of situations as judgment is wont to do, its replacement is not holier than thou, which judgment tends to want to do at times. Judgment's replacement is more open-minded, open-hearted, because compassion has this open heart that we share with one another. And it really means the mind's not closed off either, because we want the mind open up. So you who are here hearing these words, you're just like all those that judgment judged, all those beings that have been the victim of being judged, or the perpetrator of being judging of others. So that means your heart hasn't been open, and your mind has been closed when that happens. We got to change those around. You made your share of mistakes in your life, even wrongdoings, things that you would say to yourself and judge that this was not right. I made a mistake. I'm a failure. Your own judgment about people and things calls you guilty, that you did something wrong. Your own judgment has thrown stones at you. But I ask you, beloveds, what have you been guilty of? But just making an error. What have you been guilty of? Not knowing as much yesterday as you know today, and judging yourself for what happened yesterday. Let it go. You haven't lacked an awareness of suffering in your life because judgment does its best to make sure you suffer. We have all these negative thoughts that go on in our mind, and we suffer and we find fault with ourselves. So I want you to say to yourself, I have been much a fool as anyone else because I've made changed choices that I later regretted. But it's not wrong. It's not bad. The question is, does any one of us need to be sentenced to stuff like this for our own mistakes? Can you not be an original thinker and be a friend to yourself and to others? Do you really think that judgment is stronger than understanding? Who would be alive in this world if after 3 misses he was out, just like in baseball? Think about that. You only get 3 chances and then your life is ruined? Do you really think that judgment is stronger than understanding? A good question to consider. So let's move from judgment to its replacement. I ask you to please choose love over justice. Let's start off with that. Just choose love in the moment. Choose love, and there you are. You become that love that you chose. You're choosing beyond the surface mind of judgment, of the ego. How much clearer can I say it to you that judgment does not benefit you or anybody else in this world? Anything that does not benefit another doesn't benefit you, and vice versa. And it is my wish for all of us, especially for all you, that you be benefited in life, that you be beneficial, that you be benevolent to yourself and to others. Be a blessing to the ones that come before you all the time. Be my blessing, as God says. Be the blessing that I gave to you. So, that's the replacement we want to look at. Understanding, which comes from love. And loving yourself as number one is also loving your neighbor because of the great commandments. But you have to take it in, beloveds, to yourself, to love yourself unconditionally. And then everything else falls into place. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. That's the first great commandment. And the second is like it. It says, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. So what it's saying is, if we know that God lives and expresses itself within us, when we say, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, who are we talking about? Us. I love God in me as the Christ consciousness that I am, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind. Can you even visualize that much love coming out for you? The two great commandments of the Master Jesus form the basis of our work. So in that first great commandment, we are taught there is no power apart from God. Our realization must always be the Father within us, the infinite invisible, is our life. It's our soul. It's our supply. It's our fortress. It protects us. Therefore, we have to learn to put ourselves first in our connection to God, our source, because God lives in each and every one of us. Next in importance is the commandment to love thy neighbor as thyself. And we should do unto others as we would have others do unto us. The golden rule, which practically every religion has in its own form. So, what is love in the spiritual sense? What is the love that is God? Can you feel it inside of yourself and feel God within you? From the connection of God, when we look at the spiritual sense, the word love takes on a different meaning, because as humans we can say all the time, oh, I love you, I love chocolate, I love this, I love that. But we can change it that quick. Spiritual sense is no. We're one with it. We see that love is not something far off out there. It's in here. It's God within us. It's already a part of our being because it's already established within us. We were born with it. That's the core of who we are. And more than that, it is universal and impersonal, meaning it hits everybody all around the globe, not just some people. As this universal and impersonal love flows out from us, then we begin to love our neighbor more because we feel it for us. Because, why? It's impossible to feel the love for God within us and not love our fellow man. So that's all we have to do is open up to the love. God and man are one. And there is no way to love God without some of that flowing out to another person, knowing that God is in them as well. So, love is the law of God. We talk about the laws, so that's what the law of God wants to put a law out. This is it. Love as I have loved you, as I still love you. When we are in tune with this divine love, and we're loving, whether it be a friend or an enemy, then that love that we feel is a gentle thing, and it brings us peace, peace of mind, peace of heart within ourselves. But it is only gentle when we're in touch with it. At any time, we could probably lose touch with it and get back to judgment. But we don't want to. When we are in tune with it, we can't harm ourselves. We can't harm other people because we're feeling God's love within all of us. No one can injure us. We can't injure others by a violation of the law of love. The law of love makes it inevitable that the one harmed is really blessed. Judge not does not just mean to not judge evil of anyone, but we should not judge the good of anyone either. We must be careful to not call someone good as the same thing as we would call them evil. That's putting words on them. Judgment again. Goodness is a quality and a quality of God alone because it is universal. God is universal everywhere. And if we have judgment towards another person, we must make peace with that brother and sister. And we do it by asking for forgiveness for making a mistake. Just a mistake. I made a mistake of sitting in judgment of this person, and I need to let it go. All is God manifested. All is God manifested everywhere. God alone constitutes the universe. There is no place where God is not. So the law of God is the law of love. And the law of loving our enemies is about not fearing them. not hating them, but loving them. And it starts first with loving ourselves. That's our job. As any moment as we can to love ourselves, to see the wondrous being that we are. There's no other way, beloveds, to be the Christ, the consciousness of the Christ, the Son of God. Because the Christ mind has no criticism, no judgment, no condemnation, does it? All it is love and oneness and understanding and connection. And it beholds the Christ of the God as the activity of every human being in this world, as your soul, mine, and everybody else's. There's no room in spiritual living for persecution, hatred, judgment, and condemnation of any person or group of people, especially yourself. No, none at all. Take that in. We have a commandment that says, we shall not bear false witnesses against thy neighbor. Well, to declare false witnesses means to declare that he is human, that she is finite, that they have failings, that there's something less than the very son and daughter of God. Every time we acknowledge our neighbor as sinful, poor, sick, or dead, every time we acknowledge them in negative ways and ourselves to be other than the Son of God, we are bearing false witness against our neighbor. And it hurts us as well, because there is only one, the one big I of God and selfhood. Whatever truth I know about you, beloveds, or anybody, is the truth I know about me. Take all of this in to connect to the love that you are. Because once you catch the perception of the truth that the I of me is the I of you, not the little I of the ego, but the big I. Once I know that the I of me is the I of you, that the self of me is the self of you, then we shall see why we have no interests at all apart from each other. We all want the same thing. We're all doing the best we can. And we want to know that there is only one God, the one Christ, the one soul, the one spirit, the one I. And guess what? It's us. Namaste.